Why you can't trust good people, Kafka's Metamorphosis. In the labyrinth of human nature, we often find ourselves grappling with the concept of goodness. We yearn to trust, to believe in the inherent virtue of those we deem good people. But what if this very notion is built upon a fragile foundation? Today we delve into the profound depths of Franz Kafka's masterpiece, The Metamorphosis, to unravel the unsettling truth about why we cannot blindly trust those we label as good. Kafka's tale of Gregor Samsa, a man who wakes one day to find himself transformed into a monstrous insect, serves as a powerful allegory for the human condition. At its core, this story challenges our assumptions about identity, morality, and the nature of goodness itself. As we explore this narrative, we must ask ourselves, what does it truly mean to be good? And how easily can this goodness crumble in the face of adversity? Consider for a moment Gregor's family. Before his transformation, they relied on him as the sole breadwinner, viewing him as a dutiful son and brother. They saw him as good because he fulfilled his role, meeting their expectations and needs. But how quickly this perception changes when Gregor can no longer serve their interests. The family's treatment of Gregor after his metamorphosis reveals the conditional nature of their love and acceptance. This leads us to a profound realization. Often, what we perceive as goodness in others is merely a reflection of how well they conform to our expectations and serve our needs. But is this true goodness? Or is it simply a social contract, a fragile agreement that can shatter when circumstances change? I challenge you to reflect on your own relationships. How many of the people you consider good in your life are deemed so because they consistently meet your expectations or fulfill certain roles? What would happen to these relationships if, like Gregor, they suddenly fail to meet these expectations? Kafka's genius lies in forcing us to confront the uncomfortable truth that our judgments of others' goodness are often superficial and self-serving. The metamorphosis serves as a metaphor for any significant change that might alter our ability to fulfill societal roles, be it illness, financial ruin, or a shift in beliefs. How many of us could withstand such a transformation without losing the regard of those who once called us good? This realization is not meant to breed cynicism, but rather to foster a deeper, more nuanced understanding of human nature. We must recognize that goodness, as we often conceive it, is not an inherent, immutable quality, but a dynamic state influenced by circumstances and perspectives. So what then can we trust, if not the apparent goodness of others? Perhaps the answer lies in cultivating a more profound form of empathy and understanding. Instead of categorizing people as simply good or bad, we must strive to comprehend the complex tapestry of motivations, fears, and desires that drive human behavior. In The Metamorphosis, Kafka invites us to see beyond the surface, to recognize the humanity that persists even in the most grotesque transformations. Gregor, despite his monstrous appearance, retains his human consciousness, his concerns for his family, his sense of duty. Yet those around him fail to see past his changed exterior. This failure of perception is a mirror held up to our own limitations. How often do we fail to see the essential humanity in those who differ from us, who no longer fit our preconceived notions of goodness? The true test of our character lies not in how we treat those who meet our expectations, but in how we respond to those who challenge our assumptions. As we navigate the complex landscape of human relationships, we must remain vigilant against the trap of complacency. The belief that we can simply identify good people and trust them implicitly is a dangerous oversimplification. Instead, we must approach each interaction with open eyes and an open heart, ready to reassess our judgments and extend our understanding. I urge you to consider how might your relationships transform if you approach them not with expectations of consistent goodness, but with a willingness to engage with the full, complex humanity of each individual. How might this shift in perspective change the way you view yourself and your own capacity for goodness? As we conclude this first segment of our exploration, let us carry forward the unsettling yet liberating knowledge that true goodness cannot be taken for granted. It is not a fixed state, but a continuous choice, a daily recommitment to empathy, understanding, and compassion. In our next segment, we will delve deeper into the implications of this realization for our personal ethics and societal structures. But for now, I invite you to sit with this discomfort, to question your assumptions, and to begin the challenging yet rewarding process of seeing beyond the illusion of simple goodness. The chrysalis of morality metamorphosing beyond good and evil. As we continue our journey through the labyrinthine depths of Kafka's The Metamorphosis, we find ourselves confronted with an even more profound question: if we cannot trust in the immutability of goodness, how do we navigate the moral landscape of our lives? This inquiry leads us to the heart of ethical philosophy, challenging us to transcend the simplistic dichotomy of good and evil. Consider Gregor's sister, Gret. Initially, she appears as a beacon of compassion, tending to her transformed brother with care and dedication. We might be tempted to label her as good based on these actions. Yet, as the story progresses, we witness her gradual transformation from caregiver to antagonist. Her initial kindness gives way to disgust and ultimately a desire to be rid of Gregor entirely. This arc forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that even the most seemingly virtuous individuals can harbor the potential for cruelty. I ask you to reflect on your own experiences. Have you ever found yourself disappointed, even shocked by the actions of someone you considered unquestionably good? Perhaps a respected leader caught in a scandal, or a kind friend who betrayed your trust. These moments of disillusionment are not merely personal setbacks, they are invitations to a deeper understanding of human nature. Kafka's genius lies in his ability to reveal the fluid nature of morality. Through Gregor's Metamorphosis, we see how quickly social and familial bonds can unravel when confronted with the unfamiliar or the uncomfortable. This begs the question: is morality merely a luxury of comfortable circumstances? Are our ethical principles as fragile as Gregor's human form, subject to grotesque transformations when put under pressure? To answer this, we must delve deeper into the nature of moral behavior. Often, what we perceive as goodness is simply adherence to social norms and fulfillment of expected roles. Gregor was considered good when he provided for his family, but this perception quickly changed when he could no longer do so. This reveals the transactional nature of much of what we call morality. True ethical behavior, I argue, goes beyond this superficial exchange. It requires a constant, conscious choice to act with compassion and integrity, especially when it's difficult or disadvantageous. This is the metamorphosis we must undergo from passive bearers of socially approved goodness to active cultivators of a more profound ethical awareness. But how do we achieve this transformation? First, we must recognize the potential for both light and darkness within ourselves and others. Kafka's characters are neither wholly good nor evil, they are complex, contradictory beings capable of both kindness and cruelty. By acknowledging this duality, we free ourselves from the burden of perfectionism and open ourselves to genuine growth. Second, we must cultivate empathy not just for those who are easy to love, but for those who challenge us. Gregor, in his insect form, represents the ultimate other, repulsive, incomprehensible, yet undeniably sentient. Our capacity for morality is tested not by how we treat those who conform to our expectations, but by how we respond to those who deviate from them. I challenge you to examine your own biases and prejudices. Who do you find it difficult to empathize with? What would it take for you to extend compassion to those you find repellent or threatening? This is not an easy task, but it is essential for developing a more robust ethical framework. Third, we must be willing to constantly reassess our moral positions. The family's treatment of Gregor evolves throughout the story, reminding us that ethical stances are not fixed points but dynamic responses to changing circumstances. This doesn't mean we should abandon our principles at the first sign of difficulty, but rather that we should hold them up to scrutiny, testing their resilience and adapting them as we gain new insights. Ask yourself, when was the last time you seriously questioned one of your core ethical beliefs? What would it take for you to change your mind on a moral issue? This willingness to engage in moral self-reflection is crucial for ethical growth. As we navigate this complex moral landscape, we must also grapple with the societal implications of our individual ethical choices. Kafka's story is not just about one family, but about the broader human community. The treatment of Gregor reflects larger patterns of social exclusion and dehumanization. By extension, our personal moral decisions ripple outward, shaping the ethical fabric of our communities. Consider how your actions, however small, contribute to the moral atmosphere around you. How might your choices in daily interactions, the way you treat a service worker, respond to a colleague's mistake, or react to a stranger's rudeness, shape the ethical norms of your environment? In embracing this more nuanced view of morality, we free ourselves from the tyranny of absolute categories. We no longer need to anxiously classify ourselves and others as good or bad, but can instead focus on the ongoing process of ethical development. This shift is liberating, but it also comes with greater responsibility. We can no longer rely on the comfortable assumption that good people will always do good things. Instead, we must remain vigilant, constantly examining our choices and their consequences. As we conclude this segment of our exploration, I urge you to consider how might your life change if you approached morality not as a fixed state of being good, but as a continuous process of becoming more ethically aware and responsive. What possibilities might open up if you embraced the complexity of human nature, recognizing the potential for both benevolence and malevolence in yourself and others? In our next segment, we will delve into the practical implications of this ethical metamorphosis, exploring how we can build more resilient moral frameworks in our personal lives and societies. But for now, I invite you to sit with these challenging ideas, to question your assumptions about goodness, and to begin the transformative process of ethical self-reflection. The alchemy of adversity, transmuting suffering into ethical gold. As we delve deeper into the metamorphic world of Kafka's narrative, we encounter a paradoxical truth: adversity, while challenging, can be the crucible in which true ethical character is forged. Gregor's transformation, horrifying as it is, serves as a catalyst for profound change, not just in him, but in those around him. This leads us to a pivotal question. How can we harness the transformative power of adversity to cultivate a more robust and authentic morality? Consider the family's journey in the Metamorphosis, initially paralyzed by shock and revulsion. They are forced to confront a reality that defies their understanding of the world. This confrontation with the absurd mirrors our own encounters with life's inexplicable cruelties and injustices. How often have we found our moral certainty shaken by circumstances that seem to defy our sense of fairness or reason? Yet, it is precisely in these moments of disorientation that we have the opportunity for profound ethical growth. The family, faced with Gregor's incomprehensible condition, must grapple with fundamental questions of love, duty, and the limits of empathy. Their struggle, though often falling short of true compassion, illustrates the potential for moral evolution in the face of adversity. I challenge you to reflect on your own experiences of adversity. How have moments of crisis or confusion shaped your ethical perspective? Have you found your moral convictions strengthened or transformed by encounters with the unexpected or the unjust? The key to this ethical alchemy lies in our response to suffering, both our own and that of others. Kafka's story suggests that it is not enough to be good when circumstances are favorable. True moral fiber is revealed and developed when we are pushed to our limits, when our comfortable assumptions are shattered. Consider how you might approach your daily interactions differently if you viewed each challenge as an opportunity for ethical refinement. How might you transform moments of frustration, fear, or anger into catalysts for compassion and understanding? This perspective invites us to embrace a more dynamic view of morality. Rather than clinging to rigid notions of good and evil, we can cultivate an ethical flexibility that allows us to respond more authentically to the complexities of real-world situations. This doesn't mean abandoning our principles, but rather developing the capacity to apply them more thoughtfully and contextually. As we navigate this shifting moral landscape, we must also confront the uncomfortable truth that our capacity for empathy and ethical behavior has limits. The family's eventual rejection of Gregor reminds us that even the strongest bonds can be strained to breaking point. Yet, recognizing these limitations need not lead to despair. Instead, it can motivate us to consciously expand our circles of compassion, pushing against the boundaries of our moral comfort zones. I urge you to examine the edges of your own empathy. Who do you find it most difficult to understand or accept? How might you work to extend your compassion to those who seem most alien or threatening to you? In embracing this alchemical approach to ethics, we open ourselves to continuous growth and transformation. Like Gregor, we may find ourselves changed in ways we never anticipated, but unlike him, we have the power to direct this metamorphosis, to consciously shape our ethical evolution. As we conclude this segment, I leave you with this thought. What if the true measure of our character is not how we behave when life is easy, but how we respond when faced with the absurd, the unjust, the transformative? How might this shift in perspective change the way you approach the challenges in your life? In our final segment, we will explore how this ethical alchemy can be applied to broader social and cultural contexts, examining the implications for our collective moral development. But for now, I invite you to sit with these ideas, to look for opportunities in your own life to transmute adversity into ethical gold. The cosmic dance of morality, embracing ethical fluidity in a metamorphosing world. As we reach the culmination of our exploration into Kafka's Metamorphosis and its profound implications for trust and morality, we find ourselves standing at the precipice of a revolutionary understanding. The journey we've undertaken is not merely an academic exercise, but a call to action, a challenge to reshape our approach to ethics in a world of constant change. Consider for a moment the final scenes of Kafka's tale. The family, having endured the ordeal of Gregor's transformation, experiences a metamorphosis of their own. They emerge from their chrysalis of suffering, not as perfect beings, but as individuals irrevocably changed by their experience. This transformation mirrors the ethical journey we all must undertake in a world that constantly challenges our moral assumptions. I ask you, how prepared are you for the ethical challenges of a rapidly changing world? Are your moral foundations flexible enough to withstand the seismic shifts in technology, culture, and human experience that lie ahead? The key insight we glean from Kafka's work is that morality is not a fixed point, but a dynamic process. Just as Gregor's family had to continually reassess their responses to his condition, we too must be prepared to constantly reevaluate our ethical stances. This doesn't mean abandoning all principles, but rather developing a more nuanced, context-sensitive approach to morality. Imagine ethics as a cosmic dance where we must constantly adjust our steps in response to the ever-changing rhythm of life. This dance requires balance between empathy and self-preservation, between individual autonomy and collective responsibility, between holding firm to our values and being open to new perspectives. I challenge you to embrace this ethical fluidity in your daily life. How might your interactions change if you approached each situation with a willingness to reassess your moral stance? What if, instead of reflexively categorizing actions as good or bad, you considered the complex web of motivations, circumstances, and consequences at play? This approach demands courage. It's far easier to cling to rigid moral absolutes than to navigate the uncertain waters of ethical complexity. But it is in this very uncertainty that we find the potential for true moral growth. Consider the broader implications of this perspective for our societies. How might our political discourse change if we approached ideological differences not as battles between good and evil, but as opportunities for collective ethical evolution? What if our legal and educational systems were designed to foster this kind of moral fluidity? As we conclude our journey, I leave you with this final thought: the true metamorphosis Kafka invites us to undergo is not a physical transformation, but an ethical one. It is a call to shed the exoskeleton of simplistic moral categorizations and emerge as more ethically nuanced beings. I urge you to carry this insight forward. Look for opportunities in your life to practice ethical fluidity. Engage with those whose moral perspectives differ from your own, not to convert or condemn, but to understand and evolve. Approach each ethical dilemma as an opportunity for growth rather than a test of your moral purity. Remember, the goal is not to arrive at a final, perfect moral state, but to engage in a continuous process of ethical becoming. Like Gregor's family, we may find that our greatest moments of moral clarity come not from rigidly adhering to preconceived notions of goodness, but from grappling honestly with the messy, complex realities of human existence. As you step back into the world, carry with you this question: how will you dance the cosmic dance of morality in a metamorphosing world? Your answer, and the actions it inspires, may just be the next step in our collective ethical evolution.